Hey, welcome back everybody. Happy Wednesday. Hope we're all having a wonderful middle of the week, and hopefully we all made it through yesterday all right. I know it was a bit of a crazy day out there. We had high wind, we had tornadoes, we had flash flooding, and we even had blizzard conditions in other parts of the country. So again, it has been a very active stretch recently, and unfortunately, no rest for the weary here down the road. And in fact, I think we're going to get a little bit of deja vu, if you will, going into this weekend with another powerful storm system likely to cross the country. Now, this storm will have some differences. I'll definitely discuss those in this video, including the fact that after this one, we're going to have a big time Arctic air outbreak for much of the country, and that could even potentially lead to a bit of a southern snow or ice storm going into early next week, and that same storm potentially could turn into, a nor'easter. So we'll definitely watch that out. We'll watch the trends, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. But before we get there, again, we have to focus on this first storm. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. I was looking through the analytics last night, and there are a lot of you who are not subscribed, but come back and view the videos kind of every day. So go ahead, make it easy on yourself, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications, and you'll stay up to date with the latest information every time I post a new video, or just post anything on YouTube in general. Also, like the video if you like it, and of course, comment, let me know what you're seeing out there. I'd love to hear your stories about what you saw yesterday and kind of what you're expecting here going into this weekend storm system and how you might be preparing for that. And as always, of course, if you have any cool images from the storms yesterday, definitely consider submitting those with the link in the description. It's just a quick Google form there to fill out. Just put your name and where you took the picture, when you took it, and kind of a little bit of background information on that. And speaking of that, we have two more photo submissions for today's video. Both still kind of wintry images here. One from Chris in Massachusetts. Very beautiful snowfall there on those trees, and it looks like it's right out of the postcard that you would see around Christmas time. So very beautiful there. A lot of snow in that part of Massachusetts with this past storm we had. Now, Lori also sent us this picture of a eagle taking off here, kind of on the border of the UP of Michigan and Wisconsin there, and she let us know they've been flying around for a while here searching for something. So good to see that the wildlife's definitely getting out there and enjoying some of that nicer weather while we're in a little bit of a lull right now. Alrighty, so with that said, let's go ahead and jump on into this and kind of dive into what we've been seeing and what we're expecting to see over the next couple of days. And here's that massive storm system. It is not hard to miss. Look at this thing stretching all the way down from eastern Canada, all the way back down near the Bahamas, and even you'll notice the flow here. This is really connected to the Pacific here. Look at all these clouds on the bottom of your screen passing over Mexico and into this storm system. So this is, an absolutely, honestly insane mid-latitude cyclone, and we're going to see satellite images very similar to this again just a couple days from now. Now, current watches, warnings, advisories, and radar imagery, luckily, most of the active weather is kind of pulling on out of the country. We do have some leftover rain and snow falling up into Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, but as we go through this afternoon, luckily that will clear out. And we do have some more active weather back out into the Pacific Northwest. Now, that is actually our next storm system. It is beginning to kind of work into the country, and eventually will get down into the Four Corners and then find its way kind of crossing the country, much like our last storm did. But again, this one will have some differences. Now, as for watches, warnings, and advisories, we've got a plethora of flood warnings left over from yesterday through the southeast and mid-Atlantic, where we got a lot of rain, again, as that squall line moved on through, and also brought a lot of winds that are still kind of kicking around out there. We still have wind advisories for much of the Northeast and Ohio River Valley, as this storm, again, is still kind of slowly pulling away and bringing those very windy conditions. Now, back west, it's a lot of winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories. Again, that next storm system slowly working on through, and we're going to get plenty of snow out of it. Now, we'll go ahead and discuss that storm system here. Let me refresh my tab here just to make sure we are on the latest information here. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and time this out for you a little bit. I'm going to just go ahead and load everything there. So again, this afternoon, I think and morning really in this part of the country, the big key will be a lot of mountain snow here through much of California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Utah, Idaho, really much of the Rockies going to see plenty of mountain snow over the next couple of days, while we just see some good old-fashioned rain at the coast. Now that slowly works southward through the west coast. This is going into this evening here out west. You'll notice that rain through much of coastal California, while we're seeing big time snow continue through the mountains of the Sierra Nevadas, back over through Nevada and even into Salt Lake City area. Those ski resorts really going to probably luck out with a pretty nice amount of snow here. And eventually that snow works into the Rockies, back out towards Colorado and into the Four Corners region by the time we're going overnight tonight, West Coast time. Now, by the time we're waking up tomorrow in this part of the country, again, snow now falling still through much of Arizona, New Mexico, and just really through the Four Corners in general. We get another kind of burst of snow back into the Pacific Northwest as another round of energy moves on through, that once again bringing more rain to the valleys and snow to the higher elevations. Now, as we get into our Thursday afternoon here, this is when the storm finally kind of gets out of the Rockies and into the plains. Now, we will still have leftover precipitation out into the higher terrains, especially in the northern Rockies, but the storm system itself is now beginning to get its act together back out towards Kansas and Oklahoma, and beginning to slowly deepen and become more of a concern. Again, this is going Thursday evening into our Friday. Alrighty, so snowfall totals out here. Again, like I say, for this part of the country, a lot of the time, I would just kind of, look up what your elevation is. And honestly, the best way to do this is just go to weather.gov, click on where you live, and it'll give you an exact amount given on your location. But this map shows a general, good idea of what's going to happen. A lot of snow for higher terrains. In fact, we could be counting it in feet out here through the Cascades and down through the higher terrains of Oregon and back towards Idaho. And same story goes for, actually, let me move myself out of the way so you can see that a little bit better, sorry. But the same story will also go for areas further to the south, towards California, Nevada, Utah, and eventually into the Four Corners region. Here we go, a lot of snow, again, especially in the Sierra Nevadas, but same story back here towards the higher terrains of Utah, getting in on some impressive snowfall, Nevada, Arizona, and then again back towards the mountains of Colorado and New Mexico. As I said earlier, though, I would just go to weather.gov, click on your location. This is straight from them, so this will just give you a better in-depth idea on your exact elevation and location. Alrighty, now that is not the only concern we have, unfortunately, with this storm system. Going into Thursday, going into Thursday, which is tomorrow, we already have a severe weather threat outlined here for much of eastern Texas, Louisiana, and southern Arkansas. Unfortunately, this will be more of a nocturnal threat than anything. We're going to get a bit of a broken line of storms to kind of form back here towards Oklahoma City and Dallas during the evening hours, and eventually march eastbound going into the overnight. And that's when we have the threat for some strong winds, isolated hail, and even a couple tornadoes possible here during the overnight of Thursday going into our early Friday. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and time it out for you. Again, today's going to be a pretty nice day, a nice Wednesday for much of the southern Great Plains here, and that'll be, definitely welcome considering we'll have such an active time period ahead. And here it comes. This is Thursday afternoon, about 1 o'clock or so. You'll notice still relatively dry, but we get a little bit of Gulf moisture now starting to build in. And with that, some rain showers beginning to slowly develop here along the Texas coastline through Louisiana and Mississippi, where again, rain could begin to fall. But it's going into kind of the evening hours and overnight hours that these storms really begin to form here. Again, you'll notice kind of this cluster of thunderstorms. And these could be broken, so we could be dealing with a bit of a supercellular risk here. What's different about this storm compared to the last storm is this one is ingesting a lot of cold air on the backside, and with that cold air, it's also very dry air. So this is actually going to be a kind of a classic springtime dry line setup, and that could even be the case for the Carolinas. In fact, the Carolinas could see some very impressive storm structure here going into our Friday, but we'll get there in just a moment. Again, this is, though, going into the evening hours of Thursday into Friday. You'll notice those storms developing where we have that storm threat and continuing through the overnight hours, eventually congealing into a bit of a squall line here. And by the time we're waking up Friday morning, we've got big-time storms moving on through southern Arkansas, through much of Louisiana, and eventually into Mississippi through the early afternoon hours of our Friday. Now, eventually the storm pulls away, and luckily for kind of the panhandle area of Texas, Oklahoma, and the western areas on your map here, this storm system not going to bring nearly as bad of impacts as the last one. In fact, a lot of folks might not even see rain out of it, maybe just some gusty winds. But don't worry, that cold air is very quickly going to funnel in on the backside. All right, now taking a look at kind of the central Great Plains here. Again, a nice day today. It's going into Thursday evening, though, that things kind of begin to go downhill, not downhill, excuse me. So here we are. This is about the time the sun is setting tomorrow. Here we go. Snow beginning to break out here through much of kind of western Kansas here and into central Nebraska. You'll notice that snow picking up and that low pressure beginning to become stronger and stronger here through much of Oklahoma. That's going to make sure those winds pick up and that precipitation shield slowly picking up as well. Now, like I said, this storm is ingesting a lot of dry air, so total amounts of available precipitation will be much lower than the last storm, but I do think this will be a much fluffier kind of dry snow than we saw last time here through much of Nebraska, Iowa, and northern Missouri. Again, going to still be impactful, don't get me wrong, the wind will still be blowing, just luckily less overall precipitation available with this storm system. Now, this is going into Friday morning, again, still snowing through parts of Nebraska and Iowa, and going into the afternoon hours, we could get a pretty strong band of snow here on the backside through much of Missouri and into Iowa. We'll watch that for higher amounts of maybe a quick burst of snow there, again, Friday afternoon. Before going into overnight Friday and into early Saturday, things clear out, and now it's just very cold. It's going to be brutally cold even for a lot of folks here in this part of the country, for much of Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri going into this weekend. Now, how much snow are we talking? Again, a lot less available precipitation here. So I think northern Kansas kind of here into central Missouri where we're going to get that back end thumping of snow. 1 to 3 inches is going to be pretty widespread, which is, definitely enough to cause impacts, but maybe not quite enough to cause, big time concerns. Now, further north, though, into kind of eastern Nebraska and into much of Iowa, higher snow totals, 3 to 5 inches of snow with isolated spots hitting maybe half a foot of snow going to be a little more likely as we have a little bit more of a prolonged period of snowfall. Alrighty, taking a look at the Midwest now. This is where snowfall totals are going to get a little bit more insane, okay? This is where we're going to see higher impacts than we did with the last storm. Kind of the Central Plains going to be a little bit less impactful than the last storm. This area going to be more impactful than the last storm. This is Thursday afternoon on your map. You'll notice still calm, a little bit of the calm before the storm today and tomorrow, but here we go, overnight Thursday and into that kind of midnight hour or so, and by the time we're waking up Friday. Snow breaking out big time again through much of Iowa and especially into northern Illinois and northern Indiana. Heavy snow falling here as we get enough precipitation pulled out of the Gulf here that those snowfall rates will likely increase. Now, going into Friday afternoon, here we go. Snow continuing now, still for northern Illinois. Chicago, tough forecast. I think we started snow, likely go back to a bit of a rain-snow mix here during the afternoon of Friday. But if you're watching in Michigan or Wisconsin, this is going to be an all-snow event, and a lot of it, especially here in Michigan. Look at this, Friday afternoon, very heavy snowfall here through much of southern Michigan into southern Wisconsin and into extreme northern Illinois. Again, very heavy snowfall rates, while we're seeing rain to the south here through Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois. Now, going into overnight Friday, this storm continues to strengthen. We're now below 980 millibars quite likely, and with that, we're going to have a lot of wind energy and, again, very heavy snowfall rates. Here into central Michigan, I think you're going to be the real winner out of this storm, where I'll show you the snowfall map here in just a moment, but again, we could see more than a foot of snow, potentially close to 2 feet of snow, not out of the question here in isolated spots of central Michigan. And again, that snow will likely be blowing as very strong winds move in as well here, going into our overnight Friday and into our Saturday. Now, going into, again, that same time frame, the storm tries to pull north a little bit. We could see a little bit of rain try to work in here into southeastern Michigan, especially kind of in the Detroit area. We'll watch out for that. But again, central and northern Michigan still very cold and very snowy and windy as well throughout the early morning hours of Saturday before this storm finally pulls away and that cold air and lake effect snow machine then begin to crank up going into our Saturday afternoon. Before I think going into Sunday, we clear out a little bit more and should become a quite good bit nicer. All right, winds in this area will be a concern as well. Here we go. This is going into Friday afternoon as the storm picks up. Winds gusting probably about 30, maybe 40 miles an hour in isolated spots here through the Midwest. But it's really going into kind of overnight Friday into Saturday that these winds really pick up, especially if you're on the lakes. We could be gusting well past 60 miles an hour over the lakes themselves, while further inland, kind of through Indiana, Ohio, could be gusting up near 50 at times, but more widespread, probably closer to the 40s. Same story for much of Michigan, those winds moving in. and likely to continue throughout the day Saturday as well as the storm's pulling away. Very strong winds coming in off the lakes here. And that, again, likely to aid in some pretty strong lake effect snow on the backside throughout the afternoon of Saturday before, again, I think things slowly begin to calm down going into Sunday. All right, here we go. This is the latest blend of models and their snowfall forecast. Again, a lot of folks here in central and northern Michigan, more than a foot of snow, maybe isolated spots getting close to that 2-foot mark. Not out of the question. I don't think it'll be widespread, but again, I think isolated spots here into northern and central Michigan, a foot to a foot and a half of snow. And same story for these kind of eastern shores of Wisconsin as well. About a foot of snow, pretty likely for you folks. Chicago, I think this is probably overdone a little bit in this circled area on your map. I think more of 3 to 5 inches in Chicago, maybe half a foot. Unfortunately, we're going to be fighting a little bit here with that rain-snow line, especially once we get down into northern Indiana and kind of central Illinois. The good news is, though, if you are a snow lover, definitely likely to start as very heavy snow and could end as snow as well as we kind of get a burst of snow on the backside. But again, going to be fighting that rain-snow line for a lot of folks in this area. All right, again, severe weather still going to be a threat on our Friday as well here. We've already got an enhanced risk up for the I-20 corridor from Florence, South Carolina, up through Lumberton, all the way back towards Atlanta and down near Montgomery, where we could see some big-time storms, and we now have a new introduced marginal risk that kind of even stretches up into the Ohio River Valley up near Nashville and kind of the Lexington and Frankfort areas of Kentucky. So again, another very active severe weather pattern going into this weekend. All right, so we'll start with the Ohio River Valley, then we'll take a look at the southeast here. Again, here comes that storm system. This is early Friday morning. Rain kind of beginning to move into the Ohio River Valley, winds picking up as well. That severe weather threat, though, more likely to be kind of with this line of storms and whatever warm sector is able to kind of surge northward ahead of that line of storms. Now, right now, the latest model guidance shows we're going to be really struggling with some instability, and there could even be a bit of a cap in place. Now, that's a good news, bad news situation, and I should also elaborate, whenever I say cap, that means kind of a lid on the atmosphere that kind of keeps storm growth at a minimum. Now, should that lid break at any moment in isolated spots, though, that's when we could have problems, and we could be dealing with less of a squall line event and maybe more of a supercell event, which would be quite different than what we saw with this past storm. So here we go, Friday afternoon, this is what I'm talking about, a cap in place, but should that cap break, look at some of these storms kind of forming ahead of that squall line back towards the west there. These would have tornadic potential. I was taking a look at some of the wind profiles out here, and again, there's going to be a lot of wind shear, much like the last storm. The real question is, do we get that lid to come off the atmosphere, and should that lid come off, are we going to have enough instability to maintain whatever storms might develop? Again, this is early Friday afternoon, though, watching for any severe weather threat ahead of that squall line through northern Alabama, northern Georgia, into Tennessee and Kentucky, while we're dealing with just strong straight line winds with this squall line towards the back and maybe a couple embedded tornadoes as well. Now, this is going further into Friday afternoon. Again, you'll notice that squall line kind of breaks up a little bit into more of a supercellular event. And we'll be watching anywhere here from upstate South Carolina, northern Georgia, through Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky to see if there's enough instability to fuel these individual storms and allow for tornadic potential. The wind profile is there. The big question is, though, do we have the thermodynamic support or just, again, enough thunderstorm fuel? Now, that moves through the afternoon Friday and into overnight Friday before finally going into our Saturday. Much nicer weather, but very cold temperatures take over for much of the Ohio River Valley. All right, winds in this area, again, they're going to be gusty. This is Friday afternoon. I think a little less gusty than we saw with this last storm, but still, up in that 40 to 50 mile an hour range, at least max wind gusts, with sustained more in that 20 to 30 mile an hour range. That should kind of peak during Friday afternoon and into the evening hours of Friday. Again, widespread, strong winds here through much of the Ohio River Valley from northern Mississippi, Alabama, northward into Tennessee, Kentucky, and Ohio going into the overnight of Friday. But again, going into Saturday afternoon, we clean out a little bit here, and those winds should calm down, at least especially down towards Kentucky, Tennessee, southbound. All right, southeast, again, thunderstorms going to be a concern here as well. Here we go, moving this ahead. This is Friday afternoon, much like we looked at just a moment ago. Very strong squall line. Again, straight line winds, biggest concern there. Maybe a embedded tornado or two, but look ahead of it. Here we go. We've got storms trying to fire up well ahead of that squall line. And again, as I've been saying, this is a concern of mine. This last storm that we had yesterday was a very straight line shot. Outside of the beaches of the Carolinas, where we had a couple supercells move inland, it was more of just a squall line event. This weekend, or at least Friday, I should say, could be different. And going into Friday afternoon here, again, here we go. A lot of storms trying to fire ahead of this. Now, I think the best place that we will have overlapping of wind energy and instability is likely going to be down here through southern Georgia, coastal South Carolina, and northern Florida. I think that's where we're going to have the best overlapping of ingredients, and that's also where we kind of have that enhanced risk for strong storms for our Friday afternoon. Now here we go, overnight Friday, about the time the sun is setting, whatever is left of that squall line or embedded individual supercells continue to move eastbound through South Carolina and eventually into coastal North Carolina during the overnight hours, and we finally clear out here going into our Saturday, outside of a couple storms left over through southern Florida that again could have some severe weather potential there. But again, other than that, a much nicer Saturday and especially a much nicer Sunday before we turn our eyes on whatever storm system may be coming again going into early next week. Alrighty, here we go. Wind gusts in this area going to, again, be gusty, but I don't think quite as bad as this past storm. Again, strong winds, though, Friday afternoon and evening through northern Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, likely gusting up near 50 at times, but sustained winds in that 20 to 30 mile an hour range. And again, that kind of moves through pretty quickly, and by the time we get into Saturday afternoon, sorry, I've not had any caffeine today, the winds kind of calm down a little bit, though, going into the weekend itself. Alrighty, Mid-Atlantic here. Again, another place that's going to see some strong storms here. We'll move this into Friday afternoon. This is when things kind of begin to go downhill. Quiet from now until then. But here we are. Again, Friday, we've got some storms kind of trying to move northbound. Now, the real question again will be how far north does the severe weather get? I think Virginia right now, more likely to see just some rain than anything else. I think that instability will likely be pretty far to the south of you. But nonetheless, rain will be an issue, and maybe brief mix of some mountain snow here. But again, just kind of scattered showers and maybe a couple rumbles of thunder for the Mid-Atlantic, really kind of Raleigh northbound here up through Maryland throughout the evening hours of Friday before we get into Saturday morning here, and you'll notice much nicer conditions take over, and we're really just left with likely a bit of a breezy Saturday afternoon. Winds in this area, here we go. Again, going to get gusty, especially in the mountains. If you're watching in the higher terrains of West Virginia, down through Virginia and North Carolina, it's definitely going to get windy here through Friday evening and overnight. But the good news is, I think, again, winds try to calm down a little bit going into Saturday afternoon. Definitely will still be gusty, but not quite as bad as overnight Friday will be. All right, northeast. Again, we're slowly trucking on through this. Again, I promise we're almost done. Northeast is going to be a little bit different. Definitely not a severe weather threat here, but we will have a little bit of a wintry weather threat. Here we go. Overnight Friday into Saturday, just rain for the I-95 corridor and even areas further inland towards Harrisburg and Pittsburgh. And then again, kind of through southern New England, more of just a rain event here with gusty winds. But snow will definitely occur, kind of again in these higher terrains of northern New York State through Vermont, New Hampshire, and eventually into Maine as well, going into early Saturday morning here and into our Saturday afternoon. Now again, the first thumping will bring some rain and snow, but the backside is what I'm more concerned about for snow totals. I think we could get a big-time lake effect snow event here going into this weekend through much of Buffalo and kind of into upstate New York. In fact, I think we've got a playoff game in Buffalo this weekend. That could definitely bring some very interesting television as, again, a lot of snow could fall here through much of the weekend. This is Saturday afternoon and evening. You'll notice that lake effect snow still cranking up from Cleveland northbound through even upstate New York. And that continues into overnight Saturday, into our Sunday, still snowing. And that could even linger into early next week before, again, maybe another storm system tries to move on in. So, the first thumping will definitely bring some snow and rain, but that second round of lake effect snow on the backside is what I'd be more intrigued about in this part of the country. Now winds, again, definitely will be gusty. This is overnight Friday into Saturday. Again, very strong winds, especially in the higher elevations. And those continue into the early morning hours of Saturday, likely pretty similar to what we just saw yesterday. So I'd compare it to that, maybe knock off a couple miles an hour in the wind department. But again, very similar impacts here to what we saw yesterday. And those winds, again, continue to move up into portions of Maine going into our Saturday and Sunday. And again, as the storm is continuing to strengthen, we could get a back end surge of wind with that strong lake effect snow through much of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. So watching out for that as well going into the second half of this weekend. All right, total snowfall here. This is the latest blend of models. Again, we could see, 6 to 12 inches, I think, up here into Maine with that first thumping of snow. But it's the lake effect snow that I'm going to be a lot more intrigued to see kind of how this plays out here. You'll notice upstate New York, some of our models hinting at more than a foot or two even of snow. So that's going to be a big time area we're watching out for here for that potential of, big time travel impacts and maybe even power outages. Same story down towards Buffalo, maybe a little bit less, maybe 6 to 12 inches of snow, a little bit more likely into those areas. But again, still very impactful there as we get those very strong winds coming in off the lakes. All right, eastern Canada here, again, also going to see some, snowy conditions here. In fact, we already are with the current storm system. That one's still moving on through. Again, going to continue to bring snow this afternoon into this evening. And eventually kind of calming down going into our Thursday afternoon here. Now, after that happens, we get a little bit of a lull, but here comes that next storm system, and this one likely to bring even higher impacts than the first one, I think, through much of eastern Canada here. Again, very heavy snow breaking out into these southern Canadian cities, going into our overnight Friday into Saturday, and that continues through much of the afternoon Saturday as winds really pick up and that snow on the backside really cranks up here through much of this weekend. And again, even continues into early next week a little bit before we finally clear out. Now, snowfall totals up here into eastern Canada. With the first storm, again, we still have maybe another 10 to 20 centimeters of snow, likely for much of the eastern portion of the country here, and even into sections of Newfoundland here, about 5 to 10 centimeters of snow through much of the island. Nova Scotia, northern sections here, especially kind of up here in extreme northern Nova Scotia, could still see some snow as well. Now, it's the second storm, though, that we're going to see even more snow. Now, this is the first storm and the second storm combined, so, subtract whatever you still have left to come with the first storm from these totals, and that'll be how much you get with the second storm. But again, widespread 20 to 30 centimeters of snow, likely, again, through much of the eastern portion of the country here, and even kind of into these extreme eastern portions, these extreme eastern portions as well. Again, like I said, I really should probably get caffeine before recording these things. But again, a very big time storm here through Canada as well. Alrighty, again, that's the storm that's happening this weekend. That is not the only thing we need to talk about, though. We have even more impacts oncoming after this one. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. This is going into this weekend, and here we are. This is our storm system that we just got done talking about, going into our Thursday evening here. Again, likely over the Four Corners region, getting ready to cross the country. But on the backside, we have even more energy working on through, that bringing very cold temperatures and the potential of another storm system. So here we go. This is Saturday afternoon. Again, this is the big time storm that we just got done talking about. And here comes an extreme shot of cold air on the backside, Arctic air, with well below average temperatures. Now, at the same time, though, going into, again, this is this Saturday, watch what's happening back towards the Pacific Northwest. Another short wave or trough kind of begins to work on through and eventually crosses down through the Pacific Northwest and eventually kind of gets dragged down into the southern half of the country going into early next week. And we could have low pressure try to develop down here, and that being supplied by very cold Arctic air on the northern side here could lead to a winter storm once again going into early next week through the southern half of the country and maybe even the East Coast. Now, after that, looking well into the long range, that cold air looks to hold on for a while here, likely, just kind of hanging around here through much of the end of January. So I think we'll have multiple winter storm chances here going towards the end of the month. Now, temperatures here, very quickly discussing this. Again, here comes that Arctic air starting in the Pacific Northwest, going down through the West Coast, and eventually working eastbound here going into this weekend. Well below average temperatures here, 20 to 30, maybe even near 50 or 60 degrees below average up near Montana. But the Great Plains start off with that very cold air, again, going into our Sunday. And eventually that works eastbound going into early next week. Portions of the Ohio River Valley, 30 to 40 degrees below what you should be this time of year. So if you live in Kentucky and your average temperature is about 40, you could be seeing temperatures only getting up near 10 degrees for a high going into portions of early next week. And again, that cold air looks to hang around for a while here, going well into January. And again, that's going to be a big time story here, I think, through much of the end of this month. All right, so what snowstorm are we talking about? And again, that short wave that I mentioned there, well, that big storm you see in the east, that's the storm we just discussed. But here comes another storm out west, and eventually going into Sunday and Monday, we've got snow breaking out from Oklahoma through Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and ice breaking out to the south of there, potentially as far south as Dallas-Fort Worth through southern Arkansas and maybe even northern Louisiana here as that storm rides this Arctic boundary. Now, latest European model continues to work that eastbound. Eventually, we get an actual stronger area of low pressure to form down near the Carolina coastline going into early next week, and that tries to ride up the coast and bring a bit of a nor'easter here. Now, a lot of questions here on the second half of the storm, especially that nor'easter part, but what we are feeling more confident in is at least some sort of southern snowfall. So this is the chance of seeing at least an inch of snow from the GFS ensemble members. You'll notice crossing 50% here for much of Tennessee and even back towards Arkansas and into the mountains of North Carolina even. But you'll notice after that, the chances for snow in the northeast are a lot more limited as we're still trying to figure out that storm system with any kind of nor'easter potential. Now the European ensemble members, even more kind of gung-ho on this. You'll notice northern Arkansas through much of southern Kansas, Oklahoma, southern Missouri, very high chance of at least seeing an inch of snow. Most folks in here getting at least past 50% chance of that occurring with our ensemble blend. And then that threat of snow slowly works eastbound and works up into the northeast, where again a little bit more confidence for some sort of nor'easter or northeastern snowstorm going into the middle of next week with at least our European ensemble members. Now, I'll leave you with one more map here, again, just to kind of drive home the big idea here. No matter what, it's going to be cold. In fact, frigid for, a lot of the country here, about 6 to 10 days out as that Arctic air really spills in and overtakes much of the country. Kind of here during the middle of the month. So that's going to be the big time story here. Whether you see snow or not, it's going to be brutally cold for a lot of folks here, again, to end the, or not really to end the month, but at least to get towards the middle of the month and potentially even into the end of the month. Alrighty, well, again, a lot of information here, and like I said earlier, I'm getting deja vu recording this video. I'm sure you are after listening to everything I just said. But it's just one of those patterns. This is definitely probably the most active pattern I've seen in a very long time, and I'm sure many of you can probably agree with that. So again, definitely make sure to kind of rest up and get prepared here as we get a little bit of a lull over the next 48 hours or so before we hit the ground running once again going into this weekend and into next week. With that said, hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday out there, and I will see you all tomorrow.